My name is Edwin Henneken. I started working for the Astrophysics data system in 2002, and I'll explain in a little bit exactly in more detail what the ADS is. And back then, our team consisted of about 5 people, and nowadays it's about 15. Our team consists of people with backgrounds in astronomy, linguistics, computer science, and library science. And my background is in astronomy and geophysics. So in this presentation, I will highlight some of the background and history of the astrophysics data system. And most people refer to our service as ADS, and we've even had examples of people not knowing what we were when we said astrophysics data system, but when we said ADS, suddenly they knew what we were. So that's how ADS is sort of a household name. And then I will say a couple of things about our digital preservation efforts. And in practice, for the ADS, this means digitizing of historical literature and making it accessible through our service. Since our service can be used without any charge, this digitized material can also be accessed for free. So our service consists of a web portal through which people can find information. And in its most basic form, this information consists of abstracts of publications. For most of these abstracts, we also provide additional information like links to the full article text, links to data sets used in publications, associated publications like errata, press releases, or preprints. And we also provide references cited in these publications when this information has been provided to us. And this allows us to build and maintain a citation network. So our project is funded through a so-called cooperative agreement from NASA. And the service is operated from the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. Physically speaking, our offices are located within the library at the observatory. So we're in good company. So naturally, our database covers most of astronomy. We are pretty much 100% complete in all major astronomy publications and most minor astronomy publications. We have most of the core physics literature, and we index the entire contents of the archive preprint service. It's a lot more work to try be as complete as possible in conference proceedings and so-called gray literature, like books, PhD theses, for example. It often depends on conference organizers or the editors of conference proceedings to alert us and send us necessary metadata for indexing. Well, luckily for us, most, if not all, conference organizers in astronomy are aware of the importance of having publications indexed in the ADS. So reaching out to us is kind of like a standard procedure in making proceedings available. So the next slide, I have a couple of numbers that will give you an indication of the contents and the use of the ADS. We have just over 15 million bibliographic records, 133 million references or citations, depending on the direction you're looking in. Almost 5.5 million scanned pages, and that corresponds with roughly 680,000 articles that have been scanned. And by now we have 6.5 million full text documents, which consists of all the full text for all major astronomy journals and most physics journals. And annually we ingest about 1 million records and 10 million citations. And we started off as a relatively small service back when I started in '02, but now we have about 1.25 million hits a month. It's about half and half distributed between direct access, but also through Google searches. Because our contents are indexed by Google, a lot of people stumble on ADS records through Google queries. And all professional astronomers in the world use us pretty much every day and often multiple times a day. And we have a big uptake in physicists and engineers, especially when there is significant overlap in their fields with astronomy or astrophysics or heliophysics, planetary science. Also, a lot of librarians use our service, like especially when they maintain institutional or instrument or project bibliographies. But there's also a big component of the general public. We can always see a spike in hits when, like something like a new, like the Mars rover, everybody starts Googling things about Mars and sometimes stumble on ADS records. So we also get questions from the general public. So the interface has been around basically since the beginning of the web. We actually predate the web. The image on the left is our old user interface that is as old as the web and has stuck around, well, actually until very recently. It really looks like as if it was developed in, let's say, the 1990s. And back in 2011, we decided it's time for the ADS to start moving into the 21st century and using new technologies. Although a lot of people were pretty unhappy about this because they were so used to using the old interface. So we now are fully converged on the design shown in the right. It's a user interface written in JavaScript and functioning on top of an API. And for the back-end design, we decided to use a so-called Microservices Architecture. And design-wise, a huge shift was from the look and the feel of the old interface on the left, which had all these boxes where you could type in different types of metadata like authors and titles and abstracts or keywords. And this has been replaced by a one-box search. But thanks to a sophisticated query language that we developed ourselves, like all the essential functionality from the old interface can be easily reproduced in the new interface. The legacy system was finally deprecated on October 31st in 2019, after more than 25 years in service. So many years ago, the ADS collaborated with Wallback to microfilm historical observatory publications. We scanned those and they are now discoverable through our search interface. And for all main astronomy journals and also a lot of minor journals, we scanned everything back to volume 1. And that's also available for free through our interface. So at the third bullet point, you just see just a handful of examples of historical observatory publications that are now available through the ADS. And these are all, these have all been scanned completely. like, for example, the Annals of the Harvard College Observatory and one of many naval observatory publications. And the publications that we've scanned are also from European observatories. Because we ran optical character recognition on the scans, these works can also be found through the full text queries that we support through our user interface. Of course, this depends on the quality of the scans, which in turn depends on the quality of the paper copies that we've scanned. So let's look at an example query. And you can probably see that this is not an entirely random query. So you should see a results list in the ADS. So this is what you typically get when you run a query through the one-box search. And you can actually already learn a lot by just looking at the list of results from the query. So the ADS has a number of filters on the left, the left column, right to the left of the search results, has a number of filters or facets, as they're called. And from that, you can already do some like sociological research or bibliographic research. Like the first filter on the top called authors tells you, since this was an author query for Wilhelmina Fleming, it shows all the people that she published with. And since it's sorted by frequency, of course, you see her at the top of the list, but then closely followed by people that she collaborated with the most. And so these filters can help you narrow down results if you want to do filtering. There's also the publications filter over here, which gives you an overview of all the publications that her work appeared in. And the terms in this filter are the journal or publication abbreviations that we use in ADS, like the ABJ is probably very intuitive. It represents the Astrophysical Journal. And the next one represents the Harvard Observatory circulars. And the first one, that's in this case the most relevant one, it represents the PHaEDRA notebooks. So in this time period of 1875 through 1917, we found with this query 103 notebooks where Wilhelmina Fleming either was the first author or at least one of the authors. So that brings us to the PHaEDRA notebooks in the ADS. So in late 2016, early 2017, we, and mostly me, started corresponding with mostly Katie and Dana, because we started to explore like what kind of role the ADS could play with the PHaEDRA project. And I told a little bit, since we have so much experience in digitizing historical material, we had experience in what you need to look out for with like number like DPI and like the resolution of scans, and so that's what we collaborated with. But mostly our main role was to create records, and was a very smooth process because people at Wolbeck did all the heavy lifting and made my life relatively easy because they gave me such great metadata. I could just query a database and it was very straightforward for us to create records. Oops. And then the next step was to host scans of the notebooks. So on a regular basis, Katie would give me a hard drive with scans, and I would put them in our system, and that would then make me allow me to associate those scans with the records that we had created earlier. And then the next step was, once those images were in our system, I gave Katie URLs that then the Smithsonian Transcription Service could use in their system for the transcription process. And then at the very end of the process, when the transcription was completed, that gave me access to a PDF and transcription text, and that allowed me to link that PDF to the records that we have in our system. So finally, I'd like to just show you a couple of sample queries that will allow you to basically explore what we have for the FaEDRA project within ADS. So this query, BibStem, is basically our term for journal abbreviation. So this query will just return all the records that we have, like all the notebooks that we have records for. So that's just over 2,600. And again, the authors filter on the left shows all the authors, all the people who have either authored or co-authored notebooks, and again, sorted by frequency. So any jump canon has contributed to the most notebooks. And when you click on this little greater than sign, this folds open and it shows all the variants of names that we have found in records. So sometimes it's just one variant. So we only have seen any jump canon as her full name, but for instance, William Rogers, we also saw as just WA, but just his initials. So yeah, let's go to the next query. So the next query looks at all records with William Fleming as author, and we search in the full text that we have indexed for Nova Normae. And let's see what that returns. So that returns 6 records, and this query in a way puts the one notebook, because it only returns one notebook and the rest are other publications, but it kind of puts the one notebook in a context of other publications Williamina Fleming co-authored. And since we looked specifically for this star, it means that somewhere in the full text of the other publications, Nova Normae also appeared. So that in that way you can do some contextual searches and find related publications. And finally, you can also just look for mentions of a certain plate, which can also be very interesting and helpful, especially when you're trying to connect plates to the literature. So when I run this query, I find 2 records, one of which, of course, I did this by design, so it's not a complete surprise that there was one PHaEDRA notebook. So it finds two publications that were also in the previous list of results. But this query I can use to illustrate a couple of other things. So when you click on this link here of the title, this record, it takes you into the abstract view for a record in the ADS. And an abstract view just shows you all the metadata that we have for that particular publication, but also everything that we know of that is related to a publication. So if there happen to be references, then in the menu on the left, this references link will be clickable. And if there are citations, those will also be accessible through that menu. But more interestingly, probably, it also allows you to get to the full text if we have such links, and which, of course, in this case, we do. The top links to the scans that we originally got and associated with this publication. And so one view in ADS is to just browse the scans, where you can just look at each individual page. And the other link is the same information, but bundled as a PDF. And since this notebook is fully transcribed, we also provide a link to, it's called publisher. It's just the one term that we have for this type of link, which of course in this case is not entirely accurate, but it goes to the PDF at the SI. So you go directly to the transcribed text. So as transcribers, it's a nice way to see that from ADS you can get to your work. And I think that's all I have. Yep. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, then this will be the time.